I hope this is true. I've at least begun to believe it's true, that the idea originated when I was looking for locations for Jabberwocky or Holy Grail, one of those two films. And it's, we were in Wales, and Port Talbot is a steel town that has fallen on hard times. And I was out on the beach in the evening, and it's the most dismal place in the world because there's these great jetties and conveyor belts that carried the coal from the ships up to the steel plants. And all this coal dust had spread over everything, so everything had this wash of blackness over it, and it was ugly and it was gray. And the sun was setting, and it was a beautiful sunset, and I just had this image of somebody sitting on this beach with a radio and this beautiful sunset, obviously trying to escape from this bleak world of his, and picking up on the radio this song.
Imagine somebody with a hangover trying to tell the story of Brazil without having read it, without knowing Terry. It's hard to tell it even after you saw the movie. Yeah, so yeah, I definitely was called crazy and suicidal.
Milchan financed the Tom Stoppard and Charles McEwen rewrites of Brazil and shopped them around Hollywood. It was rejected by every studio. The only bite he got was from 20th Century Fox, which offered to finance Brazil if Gilliam would first direct a science fiction project for them titled Enemy Mine. Though it would have paid him millions and launched him as an A-list director in Hollywood, Gilliam refused.
After everybody passed on Brazil, I was offered this project by Fox, which they said if I did that, we could then do Brazil. And in their wisdom, what had happened was a project that was in their mind an A project. It was the best project in town, best script. And so clearly they had gone to the best directors, Spielberg and all, and they'd all passed. And eventually they got down to me, somewhere down the list. But if you're having the top project, you've always got to have the top director. So you're elevated so suddenly I'm elevated to top director status with top project. And when I turned it down, they were bemused, and they said, why? And I said, because I want to do this other film. So the other film now was elevated, because surely to turn down the top film by the top director turning down the top film for another film, the other film must be even better. And so these perceptions shift in Hollywood, and they came to Cannes with a different view of what the project was.
In May 1983, Terry and Arnon teamed up at the Cannes Film Festival, where Terry had gone to promote Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, and Milchan to make distribution deals for Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America, which was in production.
We were in Cannes, Arnon and I, running around the corridors behaving like idiots, which is really useful because they don't understand you when you behave like that, when you're not on your knees begging and groveling, when you're cavalier, we don't need your money. They start, well, come on, take some.
Somehow Milchan started a bidding war for Brazil between Fox production chief Joe Wazan and Universal's Bob Ramey, both of whom had earlier passed on it.
The whole thing about Cannes is that you get executives out of their offices in LA and you bring them down to the south of France. The sun shines, there are beautiful women, there's lots of wine, great food, and they're vulnerable. That's the important thing about Cannes for me, is that they're now in our world, and we've sort of got them, we've dragged them out of their safe little worlds. And in the case of that year at Cannes, I mean, with The Meaning of Life, it really was a big success there. And I had done this silly opening that was not supposed to be the opening, but because it didn't fit in the film, we pulled it out of the film, but it doesn't matter. That's another story. There is a buzz. There's a buzz. You're hot. You're the person they want to talk to. And so we had these meetings, and I remember the people from Fox flew in, and they get very excited too, because they get to fly in on a jet, a private jet, so that makes you feel good. So everybody's feeling good, and they're feeling dynamic, and they want to do things and make choices. And you can almost say anything to them, I'm convinced, and they will fall for it. And I don't think they're hearing what you're really saying, to be honest, because they're taking in all this information, the peripheral information about the sun, the wine, the reception of one film, all that.
I don't think that created the sense of excitement or heat for this project. I don't remember it that way at all. I mean, my memory is that we wanted to be in business I wanted to be in business with Terry Gilliam, and I thought it was, and I liked Arnon Milchan. I thought he was a good producer. I thought this was an attractive deal from a deal point of view for Paramount. I meant Paramount, for Universal, and I made the deal. It was, I think, $9 million for all U.S. rights. Based on the previous picture, Time Bandits, that was a slam dunk. That was that was an intelligent deal. And I liked Terry, and I liked this project. I liked the script, and we thought we could get some exciting casting. As you know, we got Jonathan Pryce and Bobby De Niro, and so it was a simple, straightforward piece of business for me.
Fox ended up with The World, and Universal ended up with North America.
Wazan committed Fox to another $6 million for the international rights. In Brazil, the project no one wanted was underway with a $15 million budget. By the time the film was completed, there had been a changing of the guard at Universal. Bob Ramey was gone, leaving Frank Price in charge of the motion picture division, and Brazil, at least in the eyes of its creators, was an orphan.
I was told what it was, the storyline. I figured, well, that's something I really can't have any impact on at this point, so I turned my attention to other things.
Universal executives saw a rough cut of Brazil in the summer of 1984.
I thought it was a very good picture, but not commercial. I mean, Terry's a very gifted filmmaker, and I mean, the sets and the effects were dazzling. And it was when I saw it, I said, this is it was probably make a very good art house release.
I didn't think it was a breakout movie, but I didn't see it as an art house film either. I mean, I was really basing the business decision, the financial decision, on the success of Time Bandits. I felt it had that kind of potential.
Antonowski's art house label definitely raised red flags at a studio that was not in the business of marketing specialty items. And when the lights came up at the first Universal screening of his movie, Terry knew he was in trouble.
And at the end of the film, I came in for the last 10 minutes, and I went up to the projection booth, and I was looking down, and I saw, as the lights came up, the back of those necks, and I knew we were in big trouble. I mean, every muscle was knotted, every tendon, ligament was just, there was hatred written all over the back of those heads. And I knew we're in big, big trouble. And we came down, the sun's shining, and everybody comes out. And, everybody's non-committal, but you know what's going on. And Sid had this line, which apparently Arne and I took into totally different senses. And which was that, we'll have to sell this as the film of the decade, which I knew meant that we're in trouble here. He doesn't have a clue. You can only sell it as something extraordinary, but you got to sell it hard, because nobody's going to go to see this thing unless you con them. And Arne, on the other hand, thought it was a positive statement, that it was indeed the film of the decade. And
yeah, I thought it was the greatest thing I've ever heard. I thought that I heard it's the best movie of the decade. Terry thought he heard it's the biggest problem of the decade, and he was right. You know me, I hear only positive things.